There is nothing that they should be able to ask you about your resume or anything pertaining to your resume that you will not be able to answer. Are you ready to ace your internship interview? Today, I am your interview coach, and I'm going to take you through a few common questions that you might get on an internship interview and frankly, even for a full-time job. And I'm going to help you ace that interview so you can be well on your way to getting that opportunity. In most interviews, whether or not it's for a summer internship, during a term time internship, or frankly, even for a full-time job, the interviewer will generally start with that all-encompassing, sweeping question. Oh, so-and-so, tell me about yourself. And now that is your critical opportunity right up front to start selling. Remember that anybody that is interviewing you is a buyer. Think about them like a buyer. And the buyer is buying something. They are buying someone who understands what the key success factors are for that particular role. Anytime you are interviewing, I want you to think to yourself that you have the upper hand. Why? Because the person on the other side of that conversation is the one that has a job to do that day. Their job is to find an excellent candidate to bring back to their organization to fill a seat. You simply have to make sure that that person leaves that engagement with you feeling like they would be making a mistake if they did not choose you. And this is also why I say you have the upper hand. You know yourself better than they do, so you are coming to the interview with an advantage. There is nothing that they should be able to ask you about your resume or anything pertaining to your resume that you will not be able to answer. Every now and then, you might have a consulting interview, or you might have an investment banking interview, or you might have something that's medical or science related, where they may ask you a question that will let them understand whether or not you really know the content of that particular discipline. So, if it's an investment banking interview, they might ask you, what's the weighted average cost of capital? Or what's the difference between a balance sheet, an income statement, or a cash flow statement? If it's a consulting job, they may ask you about a consulting problem because they want to understand how you are thinking. Are you thinking in a linear fashion? Do you ask the right questions? Are you making the right assumptions? Sometimes it's not even about the right answer. It's about you're walking them through verbally about how you would get to that particular answer, especially if they give you a hypothetical question. So tell me about yourself. You want to think to yourself, what are the key success factors for this role? In investment banking, people care about whether or not you have strong analytical skills, good quantitative skills, whether or not you have an attention to detail. If you were applying for a role, let's say at the New York Times, they want to understand, how are your communication skills? Do you have great written communication skills? Do you have an ability to listen and listen well? All of these things you have to be able to do in order to be successful at that job. If it's something where you're doing project management, they want to understand your organizational skills. They want to understand how well you work with other people. They want to understand whether or not it's easy for you to build relationships or whether or not you have personal initiative, because you will have to have that initiative to go to other people to ask for information that you might need in order to fulfill that project. So think about what it takes to be successful in that role. And when you start to say who you are, you want to make sure that you talk about yourself that way. So for example, I was an econ major in undergrad. Let's say that I am interviewing for an internship in investment banking. Now I'm going to say something like, I came from Jacksonville, Florida. At least that's where I grew up. I was born in Texas, but I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. And I went to a great high school. Most of the courses I took in high school were math or science because I love things that are analytical and quantitative. I decided to go to Harvard because it was challenging, and I do like to take on challenging things. And I understood that it was a big challenge to go to a place like Harvard or Princeton or some of the other schools that I applied to. And once I got in, I went straight for the most quantitative thing I could think of, and that was economics, which is why I'm an econ major today. That brings me to why I'm interested in sitting in this seat and talking to your company. And then you go on from there. What did I tell you about myself? I told you where I was from. I told you that I've been doing analytical and quantitative things since high school. I told you that that's what drove me to my college, and I told you where I went. So all within a couple of minutes, I gave you a lot of background about who I was, but I sold it through the lens of what it means to be a successful banker. Now, if I was applying for a job at the New York Times, I would have said, I came from Jacksonville, Florida. That's where I grew up, but I was born in Texas. I also took a number of classes, creative classes, while I was in high school. In addition to my quantitative courses, I took humanities, I took English. That's where I learned how to really write, and I did quite well in those courses. While I went to Harvard, I went there because I also wanted to have a liberal arts education. While I wanted something that was quantitative, which is why I'm an econ major, I've also been taking A, B, and C, D courses, which allows me to continue to develop creatively, and it also gives me the opportunity to continue to write. I'm interested in an internship with the New York Times because I want to do something where I can expand my writing skills. I think I'm a pretty good listener, and I think that's important if you're going to be a great reporter. And I also want to have an opportunity to build relationships with other people in that space. Same girl, same experience, but I talked about different things about who I am as they related to what that buyer was really buying. Another question that you might get is, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? You want to be thoughtful about that because your strengths should be consistent with what they value. And your weaknesses should not be something that is highly valued. So for example, I can't go into a New York Times interview and say, oh, I want to continue my weaknesses. I need to continue to work on my writing skills. And that's not going to work because they're buying somebody who is really good when it comes to writing. I can't go into an investment banking interview and say, I need to really work on my numbers. That will not work. So when you think about your strengths, think about something that's close to or directly upon the key success factors. And the weaknesses should be something that have nothing to do with the job. Maybe you can talk about trying to improve your golf game. Maybe you can talk about, singing or being more comfortable singing in front of people, whatever. But it should have nothing to do with that role. And if it does, talk about how you have been investing in making sure that you improve in that space. And then the last question that I'm going to give you that you must be prepared for, at the end of every interview, they ask you, do you have any questions? Make sure you go into that interview with a few questions, because when you don't have questions at the end, they think either A, you're so afraid and you're so nervous, you're just ready to get out of there. That's not somebody that they want to hire. Or number two, you didn't prepare, because there's no way you can leave that interview with no questions. You have never worked in that organization. So how can you know everything about what that experience might be like? Now, here are two questions that I love to ask, especially if it's a full-time interview or a lateral interview. The first question is, I say, when you all describe someone as a superstar in this environment, how do you describe them? Give me the 3 words. Now I know what they value, how they think about a superstar. So if I'm going into that organization, I want to make sure that my behavior is consistent with how they think about superstars. The second question that I love to ask in an interview is, give me the profile of somebody who doesn't make it in this organization. When somebody is asked to leave or they're fired, why is that? Give me the 3 adjectives that describe that person. Now you know what they don't value in that culture, what they don't value in that organization. And you know that those are behaviors that you need to avoid. The bottom line in acing your interview is to be present and really listen to what the interviewer is asking. Never cut them off. Even if you think you know where they're going in the question, you can do like this, you can nod your head, or you can silently smile, or you can silently think to yourself, okay, I got this. But you really want to listen, because sometimes they may end up in a completely different place where you thought they were going to go. And there's nothing more powerful than answering the question that was asked. It says to the other person that you are listening, and everybody values being heard. If you don't understand the question, yes, then you want to say, would you repeat that? I'm not sure I understood it. Or did you mean A, B, or C? It's important that when you walk into interview, you walk in with the confidence of knowing that you have the upper hand. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Remember, I'm the lady that says fear has no place in your success equation. Walk in with the confidence of knowing that you believe you will be a great candidate for that role, and you believe that you will be value add to that organization. Now, make sure they believe it. Go get them.